They thought they could use his pool whenever they pleased, until they walked out glowing like neon signs. Jason never imagined his biggest problem as a homeowner would be lurking in his own backyard. He had worked tirelessly to afford a house with a pool, a place to relax after work, host weekend cookouts, and escape Arizona's blistering heat. But lately, something felt off. At first, he brushed it off, a few damp footprints on the pavement despite clear skies, a faint chlorine scent on days he never touched the water. Then came the sounds, soft ripples in the dead of night, like someone slipping into the pool when the world was silent. He chalked it up to stray animals or his imagination playing tricks on him. But the unease wouldn't go away. One evening, Jason stayed up later than usual, lost in a movie. Around 11 p.m., he muted the TV and listened. Silence. Just the low hum of the pool pump. He exhaled, shaking his head. Then, a laugh. Not from the TV. Not his. It was coming from outside. His pulse quickened as he grabbed his phone and crept toward the window, barely parting the blinds. His jaw clenched. Shadows moved near the water. His first instinct was to storm outside and confront them, but he stopped himself. If they were bold enough to trespass, who knew how they'd react? He needed proof. The next morning, Jason installed discreet security cameras, small enough to go unnoticed but perfectly positioned to catch everything. And when he reviewed the footage, his blood boiled. He didn't have to wait long. Sipping his coffee the next day, he scrolled through the recordings, expecting maybe a stray animal. Instead, his grip tightened around the mug. Mike and Lisa, his next-door neighbors, along with their 2 teenage sons and a handful of friends, were lounging in his pool like they owned it. The video showed them slipping in through the side gate, one Jason always kept locked. Except, now that he looked closer, the latch was bent. Likely from being forced open time and time again. They weren't just sneaking a quick dip. They were treating his backyard like a private resort, laughing, splashing, sipping drinks, completely at ease. Jason fast-forwarded through the footage, his frustration growing. This wasn't a one-time offense. The timestamps revealed them sneaking in repeatedly over the last 2 weeks, always late at night when he was either asleep or away. They weren't just using his pool. They were throwing full-blown parties. Jason stared at the footage, his jaw tight. The nerve. They hadn't asked, hadn't even casually mentioned it, just decided his pool was theirs to use. He rewound a clip from 2 nights ago. The teenagers were cannonballing into the deep end, while Mike lounged on one of Jason's pool floats, beer in hand. Lisa sat at the edge, chatting loudly, her feet dipping in. At one point, Mike even tossed an empty can onto Jason's patio like it was trash. That was it. Jason had been patient, but this was flat-out disrespectful. He could march over, bang on their door, and demand an explanation. But he wasn't interested in a screaming match. He wanted them to understand just how badly they'd screwed up. As he skimmed through the footage again, his irritation deepened. They were so casual about trespassing, so completely shameless, they probably didn't think twice. That was about to change. Jason leaned back, tapping his fingers on the table. He could call the cops, but he wasn't trying to turn this into an all-out neighborhood war. He could report them to the HOA, but that would take time. He wanted something immediate. Then it hit him, an old trick from his college days. A harmless prank his chemistry buddies used to pull on freshmen. Phosphorescent dye. Completely invisible in daylight, but once activated by water, it clung to skin and fabric like glue. Under artificial light, it glowed neon green, and lasted for days. A slow smirk spread across Jason's face. He already knew where to get it. Jason wasn't the type to let things slide, but he also wasn't looking for all-out war. He just wanted to teach them a lesson, something harmless, yet humiliating. Something that would make them think twice before sneaking into his yard again. An online chemical supply store had exactly what he needed. The dye was safe, used for pranks, but notoriously hard to remove quickly. Once it touched water, it bonded to skin and fabric for up to 48 hours. Jason placed his order. Then, he waited. A few days later, the package arrived. That night, once the neighborhood was quiet, he got to work. Draining just enough water to adjust the balance, He poured in the special dye. The pool looked completely normal. No odd colors, no strange smells. Nothing that would raise suspicion. Jason cleaned up and checked the time. If their pattern held, his unwanted guests would be arriving soon. And sure enough, at exactly 10:47 p.m., the security cameras picked up movement. The side gate creaked open. Mike, Lisa, and their usual crew slipped in like clockwork. Jason watched from his laptop, amused as they settled in. The teens jumped in first, splashing around. Lisa sat at the edge, laughing, while Mike floated with his beer, completely at ease. They had no idea. For 30 minutes, Jason let them enjoy themselves. He scrolled through his phone, casually glancing at the screen, waiting for the moment of realization. Then, it happened. One of the teenagers climbed out, reaching for a towel, then froze. Under the patio light, his skin glowed neon green. A panicked yell split the night. Lisa turned, eyes widening. "What the—" She looked down. Her arms were the same unnatural shade, the glow creeping across her skin. Screams erupted as the teens scrambled out of the water, their bodies lighting up like human highlighters. Mike sat up on his float, confused, until he caught his reflection in the patio door. His face drained of color, except for the parts now glowing bright green. Panic set in. One of the kids bolted for the outdoor shower, scrubbing frantically. Nothing. Lisa snatched a towel, rubbing at her skin, only to smear the glow further. Mike stormed toward Jason's back door and pounded his fists against it. "What the hell did you do?" Jason didn't answer right away. He let the panic settle, let Mike stew. Then, he picked up his phone and sent a single text. "Nice swim. Hope you enjoy the glow. It lasts 48 hours. Mike looked down at his phone, then at the pool, then back at his phone. Realization hit like a truck. Behind him, Lisa's furious voice rang out. "You idiot! I told you to stop doing this." Mike ignored Lisa's frantic whispers and turned back to Jason's house. "Open the damn door, Jason." Finally, Jason responded. He pulled the blinds just enough to make eye contact, then, in the calmest voice imaginable, said, "You should have asked." And with that, he shut the blinds. Mike stood there, fists clenched, completely speechless. His face, arms, even his chest, still glowing. Lisa tugged at his sleeve. "Let's go. Now." They left in a hurry, shoving through the side gate. Jason leaned back on his couch, stretched out his legs, and exhaled with pure satisfaction. His pool was finally his again. His laptop was still open, security footage playing in real time. On the screen, his trespassing neighbors were in full retreat, stumbling over lounge chairs, practically lighting up the night like neon ghosts. Lisa scrubbed at her arms, but the dye refused to budge. One teenager bolted to the outdoor shower, cursing as he frantically tried to scrub the glow off. Another stood frozen by the pool steps, staring at his hands like he'd been cursed. Mike, however, was the loudest. "What the hell is this?" he bellowed, standing under the patio light with his arms outstretched like some kind of radioactive mutant. His chest, shoulders, and face glowed an eerie, sickly green, and the water droplets clinging to his skin only made it worse. Lisa turned on him, still rubbing at her skin in vain. "I told you we shouldn't keep doing this." Mike started to argue, but as he turned his head, his eyes locked onto something through the sliding glass door. Jason. Sitting comfortably. Watching. A smirk tugged at Jason's lips as he lifted his phone, typing a message. Mike's phone buzzed. He yanked it from his pocket and read. "It's non-toxic, won't hurt you. But it's not coming off anytime soon. Have fun explaining this tomorrow." Mike let out a frustrated growl, fists tight at his sides. But what could he do? Call the cops? That would mean admitting to trespassing. Scrub it off? Pointless. The dye was designed to bond with skin underwater. It wouldn't fade for another 48 hours. Jason could hear Lisa's tone shift from anger to panic. "I have work tomorrow," she muttered under her breath. Mike's face twisted in realization. His job required face-to-face client meetings. One of the teenagers groaned. Dude, I have a date tomorrow. I can't show up looking like a freaking alien. Jason had to bite back a laugh. Lisa grabbed Mike's arm, pulling him toward the gate. We're leaving. Now. They hurried off, their glowing limbs betraying them even in the dark. The moment the side gate slammed shut, Jason finally let out the laugh he'd been holding in. With a satisfied sigh, he shut his laptop, stretched his arms, and basked in victory. His pool was his again. But he wasn't quite done. He opened the private neighborhood group chat and, without naming names, typed a simple message. Friendly reminder, if you're going to borrow someone's pool, make sure you don't leave glowing evidence behind. He hit send, shut off his phone, and grinned. Tomorrow was going to be fun. Jason woke up feeling more rested than he had in weeks. There was something deeply satisfying about knowing his pool was no longer a free-for-all. Still in his pajamas, he poured himself a coffee and stepped onto his porch. The Arizona sun had barely risen, but the heat was already creeping in. Jason leaned against the railing, sipping his drink, waiting. And sure enough, it didn't take long. Mike and Lisa's front door swung open. Mike stepped out first, sunglasses on, hoodie pulled tight, sweatpants dragging over his shoes. A perfectly fine outfit, except for the fact that it was already 85 degrees outside. Lisa followed, wrapped in a scarf that barely masked the faint green tint still clinging to her skin. Their teenage sons weren't so lucky. One shuffled toward the car in a full tracksuit, his hood yanked up over his glowing face. The other had resorted to gloves, desperately trying to cover the evidence. But even from Jason's porch, he could still see it. Neon green, peeking from the edges of their clothes. Jason took a slow, deliberate sip of his coffee. They knew he was watching. Lisa shot a quick glance toward his house, her jaw tight. Mike, on the other hand, kept his head down, yanking his car door open with just a little too much force. The teenagers muttered something between them before piling into the back seat, moving quickly, as if that would somehow make them less noticeable. But it was too late. Jason had already overheard the neighborhood chatter that morning. "Did you see them? They're glowing," someone had whispered while walking their dog. Another neighbor had laughed. "I thought they just got a really bad spray tan." Mike knew. Lisa knew. The whole street was talking about it. And Jason. He didn't even have to say a word. But that didn't mean he was done just yet. His phone buzzed, a text from Mike. "Mike, you've made your point." Jason smirked. He took his time before responding. "Jason, did I? Because I don't remember breaking into someone else's backyard." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response. Jason took another sip of coffee, enjoying the silence. Good. That night, Jason checked his security cameras one last time. The side gate remained shut. No movement in the dark. No splashes. No laughter. Just the still, untouched water of his own pool. Lesson learned. This is a solid ending that ties everything up nicely. It keeps the momentum, wraps up the conflict, and leaves the audience with a question to engage them. Would you like to tweak the closing question to make it more compelling? Something like, do you think Jason went too far, or was this the perfect way to teach them a lesson? Let me know in the comments. Also, do you want a stronger CTA for subscribing? Like, if you enjoyed this, hit that subscribe button for more jaw-dropping real-life stories. Let me know if you want any final tweaks.